Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a great day. I wasn't planning on making this video, but actually I was looking into the new miner, the 440 terahash miner that Numiner's coming out with, and Sphere 3D is going to be buying 60,000 of them. So I started looking into them. I read a little bit into them when the news came out this week. It was a little questionable whether or not there was actually any truth to it. So I wanted to wait off until I did some research on it. And we've obviously have a lot of people commenting on it on the interwebs, and even big companies like Luxor Mining has commented on it. So we're take a look at that, see if there's any truth to it, and we'll also see if there's what the chance of it is becoming a reality here. Okay, so you may see that video in the background. That's basically what they have on their website, is the Luxor Mining, the 440 terahash miner. So let's take a look at it here. We'll look at the article, and then I'll provide you guys my thoughts on it as well. So a mining rig that boasts 440 terahashes. Miners question the legitimacy of the new Bitcoin mining device. I did too as well when I looked at it. I mean, the render is horrific. If this is just a render, which it looks like it, we'll get into it here a little bit. Some of the things that are kind of popping out, I'm surprised they even released this image to begin with. But here's the story, and we'll get into some of the details here on it and provide my thoughts as well. So the cryptocurrency community has been discussing a newly announced Bitcoin miner called the Numiner NM440 that claims to produce speeds of up to 440 terahash per second. Furthermore, a publicly listed company called Sphere 3D has detailed that it purchased 60,000 Numiners NM440s mining rigs and aims to deploy 32 exahash per second. That is obviously going to make them larger than Marathon of SHA-256 hash power. Furthermore, there's been some disbelief among members of the crypto community on whether or not the hash rate speed claims are legitimate. I had the same doubts and questions in my mind when I saw that, because we know that obviously Antminers, the XP Pros, are going to be 140 terahash, and then they obviously have their liquid cooled miners that are going to be like 198 terahash, or something like that, close to that. But those, you need a huge container for it to be housed in those, specifically for that. So obviously, pretty big increase in hash rate from what we are currently seeing. So let's keep reading on here. So Numiner NM440 revealed manufacturer claims device boasts speed up to 440 terahash. A number of crypto supporters have been talking about a new Bitcoin miner that claims to process speeds that are higher than any mining rig on the market today. Furthermore, the machine called the Numiner NM440 series allegedly processes at higher hash rate speeds than Bitmain's upcoming models, which I just talked about. That's because the Numiner NM440s reportedly produces 440 terahashes per second in comparison to Bitmain's Nminer S19 XP, 140 terahash, and the Nminer S9 Pro Plus Hydra, which is 198 terahash. Okay, so it's right there. So there's obviously a lot of skepticism in there, because you're basically doubling the speed, and there's also making a pretty big claim on the power efficiency, that it's 75% less power draw. So we got to question everything that we see here. In addition to the newly announced mining rigs, a publicly listed firm called Sphere 3D has announced it has purchased 60,000 Numiners NM440s. According to press release, Sphere 3D will receive 12 pre-production NM440s for final evaluation and testing to be completed on or before June 1st. So they're obviously getting close to making those miners. So Pennoni Group obviously tweeted this. Sphere 3D, the data management firm that is merging with Bitcoin miner Gryphon Digital Mining in a SPAC transaction, has signed a deal with mining computer maker Numiner Technologies to purchase 60,000 of its high-end NM440 machines for $1.7 billion. That comes out to be, what was it, like 20? I can't remember now. So let's do the math here. 123 divided by 60,000. It's $28,333 per miner, basically. The new miners are around 11,000 or so. So 3 times the price, and you're getting about 3 times the hash rate. So, okay, so far so good. So that kind of makes sense here a little bit. After final evaluation, more batches will be shipped to Sphere 3D with an option to purchase an additional 26.4 exahash of machines. The current deal of 60,000 NM440 costs $1.7 billion, according to the company. Sphere 3D stock saw a rise after the announcement, jumping 30% higher. Yeah, this is one of those things where I keep talking about. Future hash rate has a huge impact on the stock price of the miners. Anytime we see anybody announce a large increase in future hash rate, we can see that the stock price goes up on that. I'm not so convinced still that the hodl positions that some of these miners have is what drives the stock price. I think I don't think it hurts, but I don't think it helps a lot more than the actual hash rate going forward. Okay, so let's continue on here. So Numiner Global, they're saying here that they launched with 1.7 billion in sales to preferred customers Sphere 3D. Continue on here. According to Numiner's website, the firm says the flagship NM440 is the world's most powerful and environmentally friendly miner. In addition to the massive 440 terahashes, the specifications claim a single NM440 gets efficiency rating of 20.2 joules per terahash. I think the Numiner S9XP 140 terahash miner is 21. Is it 21.25 or something like that? It's somewhere around there. It's really close. The web portal claims that the machines give 75% reduction in energy consumption, and the firm further insists if all Bitcoin miners deployed the NM440, a global Bitcoin mining energy consumption in 2021 would drop from 121 terawatt hours of electricity to 30 terawatts per hour. That is a huge claim. If you can claim that you're saving basically 75% electricity on these miners, that is huge. We know that also Intel is coming out with their miners here. We'll have to see what they use, but we'll take a look at some of the numbers that I have here that I was able to dig up a little bit on some of the stuff that's coming out. So be patient here. Okay, Luxor Mining is also chiming in on this. So Luxor Mining says reported specs are highly dubious. While the specifications are better than most machines on the market, people are wondering if the machines are legitimate and individuals are curious about the new company. Poland's Alejandro de la Torre tweeted about the new miner and said, "Never heard of these guys before." Luxor Mining tweeted about the announcement as well. On Twitter, it asked its followers if people thought it was legit. All right, so a lot of, obviously, people weren't believing the news that was coming out. Numiner came out nowhere and announced a 440 terahash miner with efficiency of 20.2 joules per terahash. Luxor Mining said these packs would make it an industry-leading ASIC. What do we think, fam? Is this thing legit, right? So there's a lot of skepticism here, and rightfully so. The image that they provided, it looks like some people have said, it looks like a Mountain Dew can, and it's just a lot of more questions than actual answers on this thing. So Luxor Mining continued to be skeptical and further said, jokes aside, regarding the new miner NM440, when we saw Gryphon's pre-order yesterday, we were highly skeptical but gave the rig the benefit of the doubt due to Gryphon's press release. That said, there are too many red flags for us to regard the NM440 as a legitimate product. The mining operation added, Luxor Mining further remarked. So they further remarked, the NM440's reported specs are highly dubious, as are new miners' marketing materials. Further, there's very little information on new miners' development and team. As such, we cannot attest to validity of the product and would caution our followers against it at this time. And I would agree. So we'll take a look at New Miner's website. There isn't a lot of information as far as who their team is. All we can see is 3 people on their team, but we'll get into that. The Chinese journalist known as Wu Blockchain discussed the new miner project as well on February 3rd. New Miner announced its new Bitcoin mining machine, the NM440, uses TSMC, so Taiwanese semiconductor chips, and cooperates with Foxconn and Xilinx. I don't know how to pronounce that. The highest 440 terahash in history and 20.2 joules per terahash. Sphere 3D has committed to buying 1.7 billion on that. The authenticity of the data is questionable, which Wu Blockchain said. So we have obviously partners that have partnered with them as Taiwanese Semiconductor, Foxconn. Foxconn is obviously one that's going to be building probably the rigs together. Xilinx, I don't know what they do. I haven't looked up into them yet, so I'll have to find out what they do. The website does say that the new miner models are being produced in coordination with TSMC, Foxconn, Xilinx. While many questioned the legitimacy of the project, others made jokes about the pictures, units, Mountain Dew colors, aesthetics, and features. Meanwhile, the Bitcoin miner Gryphon Digital Mining Special Purpose Acquisition Company SPAC deal was reported on. Yeah, so we've already read that. So there you have it. So a lot of obviously questionable things on it. So let's take a look at the picture of the actual miner here. We'll digest a little bit and see how much. I think this might be just a outlandish drawing, and hopefully the new miner, when it comes out, doesn't look like this, because right now there's just no way I think it's going to operate the way it looks. So let's take a look at that right now, and we'll go on from there. So here's what we got. So this is a close-up picture of it. Let me see if I can show you guys here all of it. So the first thing that I noticed when I looked at it, we can see that the motherboard here on top has been either stretched out or somebody tried to basically blur it out. You can see the blurs here and everything. It just doesn't look really good. The other thing, it looks like it's using a computer motherboard. You got memory chips, you got RAM here. It looks like 4 slots for RAM. You got a heatsink here for maybe a CPU or something. And then you got, and I'm not sure if this is a cable or piping, tubing basically for water cooling. So a lot of questions on this unit here that, I mean, you can see the piping go here, then down here, then into here. And then the weird thing is you got 3 green tubes and you might have possibly 3 red tubes coming through here, which I think is going to be possibly their cooling for the unit. And then if you look at the actual, image here, this is just horrific. Whoever did this, because it's covering up the latches here that basically hold these covers in place, and it's all done in the same kind of pattern. It just looks really bad. They did it all the way through here, so whoever did this, not a great job on that. And then by the way it looks like the cooling here gets hooked up to an outside source and gets basically flushed into the unit and then going into 3 different spots here. I don't know, possibly to the power units, to the chips themselves, and you got the hot coming out possibly as well. So they're using a closed circuit system to pump in fresh, cool water, not water, but, well, it's kind of water. It's heat transfer fluid, and then obviously getting it out to cool down. So we can see that possibly being the case here. Not sure what these yellow bulbs, or not yellow, green bulbs here are for. There's empty space here. There's empty space here. You got a bunch of empty space back here as well. It just does not make sense at all how this thing is going to operate. You have a bunch of what looks like power units here, possibly. Some server grade power units. PSUs being plugged into it here, but there's no plugs to plug in. I don't know. It's just weird. So the whole thing is more questions than answers. So let's take a look at the Numiner website here. So here's their website. Numiner is the world's most power efficient and environmentally friendly Bitcoin mining technology. The video that you see here is the video that I have playing in the background there. I wanted to take a better look at it. We'll look at the video here as well. But I wanted to see it a little bit more up close to see what's going on there. And I don't think that's the actual unit that they're going to be shipping out, but we'll take a look at it. So they're saying 8x processing speed, 75% less energy consumption, which is a huge feat to make. Numiner launches with preferred customer Sphere 3D. So this was obviously updated recently here. And we can see the unit itself here again, where it just doesn't look like feasible, or at least it looks weird. All the different colors, the glowing green here just looks weird. Let's take a look at their team here, see if we can find something info on them. Company leadership. So this is just more about the news here. So Numiner's leadership. I don't know if this is Leon Kennedy. So he's the chief executive officer here, and then we got a couple of board members here. So Leon has a pretty good background. We'll take a look at it. I looked at it here quickly. So Leon Kennedy is the Chief Executive Officer of Numiner Global. He was formerly Executive Vice President of Enterprise Technology and Supply Chain at Canadian Tire Corporation. Here's the thing that kind of got me a little bit more, I wouldn't say calm down that this might be a possibility, but previously Leon was the Global Chief Information Officer of BlackBerry, including corporate information technology, cybersecurity, and technology services provided to BlackBerry customers globally. So he's obviously got a pretty good background in information technology. I don't know how much he has in microchip processors and things like that. It does say here, prior to BlackBerry, Leon was the Global Chief Operating Officer at Spin Masters Ltd., a leading global children's entertainment company. Leon also had a number of executive roles with Celestica and IBM. Okay, so here's a tie-in to IBM, which I'm going to refer to here in a minute, with responsibility for various operations, supply chain, information technology, and business development functions. So he may have some insiders at IBM. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit here. Next, let's take a look at their video here that they have. Or actually, this is the, what do they call this? That's not press release, but it's a pamphlet that they put out. So here's what they're claiming, obviously. This is the 1.7 billion deal. If NM powered all Bitcoin mining, it would reduce energy consumption by 75% from 121 terawatt hours to 30 terawatt hours. So obviously a huge claim. So that's why people are really skeptical about all these claims here. And then we see Lane Kennedy again, and another board member here, Tony Melman. That didn't do too much digging into him. Don't really care about board members too much. What else do we have here? So 4.5x more profitable, 3x faster than recently announced leading miner yet to be delivered, faster than currently available market leading miners, faster than average miner on the market. Okay, so obviously big claims here. So let's take a look at the video here. So this is a video that's from their website. It helps having some web development experience. I can pull stuff out if I want. So here we go. Let's play the video and then we'll take a more deep dive into it, or we'll stop it as we go. Okay, so number one question that popped into my head is, why do we have green lights here glowing? Makes no sense. Lights just use up more electricity unless those are actual chips glowing and you're using radium or something, who knows? But that just makes no sense here. It looks like it's almost, I can't tell really well here, but it looks like you got a cavern where air flows through it. That's the only thing I can see right now. Let's see if we can play that. No, that looks like, I don't know, it's hard to tell. But it does look like this would be an open cavern where air could possibly flow through it, which doesn't make any sense, especially since you're using liquid cooling, it looks like. So let's continue on here. Oh, there you go. You got an empty box here, empty box there, empty innards here. So I'm guessing those are where the ASICs are going to go possibly. Continue on. What else can we see here? I mean, everything else is pretty much the same that we've seen. There's not much else going on. I mean, it's just questionable on the design and everything else. And then we're going back in reverse. But yeah, I mean, you can see that there's nothing here right now. So obviously that's possibly where the ASICs would go if it was the way to play out. And then here, this is kind of weird. Like I said, I'm trying to figure this out. And you got this pipe going into here possibly to cool something up there, and going into here to cool something down here possibly. So just a weird design in my opinion. Hopefully this is just a render of somebody's guess of what it might look like. Who knows, unless they actually have a working model of this, which we don't know. Okay, so obviously a lot of skepticism on this unit. Don't know, we've seen from others, experts that have thought, and the validity of this product as being not very high. Obviously the reason for it was the 440 terahash rate, the 75% reduction in energy. All these things obviously make people question the validity of a product. So I started doing some digging into it and found an interesting article here that I think might prove the case that this might be an actual machine coming out later on this year if they're able to pull it off. So let's take a look at it here. So here's an article from last year. IBM creates the world's first 2 nanometer chip. IBM's new 2 nanometer process offers transistors density similar to Taiwanese Semiconductor's next generation 3 nanometer. So let's get into the details here a little bit, and then we'll weigh in on how possible it is for Numiner to come up with this. So IBM will announce a new breakthrough in semiconductor scaling, the world's first chip with 2 nanometer technology. I'm not a chip expert or anything like that. I know obviously smaller is better, more efficient as far as power, so I do understand that. This new technology combines an industry-first bottom dielectric isolation to enable 12 nanometer gate length, a second generation inner spacer dry process for precise gate control, EUV patterning to produce variable nanosheet widths from 15 nanometer to 70 nanometer, a novel multi-VT scheme for both system on a chip and HPC applications. Expected to offer, here's the thing that got me, expected to offer 45% performance improvement or 75% power reduction compared to 7 nanometer. So this is IBM. What did we learn about our Mr. CEO here? Other executive roles at Celeste, can't pronounce that name, and IBM. Is IBM creating the ASICs, the design for the ASICs that are going to be powered for this guy's company? And that's the only thing that I'd link that I could make between the two here. So this obviously is a huge, so we know that Bitmain, a couple of the other guys are using the 7 nanometer technology for their ASICs. So if that is the case, this has just increased the validity of the product a lot more. Let's take a look at the details here. So on Thursday, IBM announced a breakthrough in integrated circuit design, the world's first 2-nanometer process. IBM says the new process can produce CPUs capable of either 45% higher performance or 75% lower energy use than modern 7-nanometer designs. If you followed recent processor news, you're likely aware that Intel's current desktop processors are still laboring along at the 14-nanometer, but we know obviously Intel is going to be getting into the AC miner as well, so we'll have to find out what nanometer size chips they're using. While the company struggles to compete, a migration downgrade to 10 nanometers, and that its rivals are much smaller processes, with the smallest production chips being Apple's new M1 processors at 5 nanometers, and those things are great chips. I have a Mac Mini here that I'm using here to record this video on. Things are awesome. What's less clear is exactly what that means in the first place. Originally, process size referred to the literal two-dimensional size of a transistor on the wafer itself, but modern 3D chip fabrication processes have made a hash of that. Foundries still refer to a process size in nanometers, but its 2D equivalent metric only loosely coupled to reality, and its true meaning varies from one fabricator to the next. Okay, so that's important to note. And then here we can see the manufacturers, the examples, the process size, peak transistor density, and everything. So we can see that Intel, the 10 nanometer is basically 100 peak transistor density. Then we have the Apple's M1 CPUs are 171, and then Apple's, which Taiwanese semiconductor also does it for them. Next generation, which are coming out in 2022, the 3 nanometer is supposed to have 292 estimated, and then IBM May 6 prototype IC, 2 nanometer, 333 transistors density per millions per square millimeter, I guess. As you can see the chart above, the simple nanometer metric varies pretty strenuously from one foundry to the next. In particular, Intel's processes support a much higher transistor density than implied by the process size metric, with its 10 nanometer Willow Cove CPUs being roughly on par with 7 nanometer parts coming from Taiwanese semiconductor foundries. TSMC builds processors for AMD, Apple, and other high-end profiles as well. So, based on that, what we have learned here, if they are able to even get to the 3 nanometer or the 2 nanometer chip size that we know Taiwanese semiconductor is building, that gives validity to the product, I think, more so than anything else. And I think some of the complaints, not really complaints, but some of the skepticism that has been around them, I think is mute right now, based on what I've seen here. Unless, I can be proven wrong that they can't do this or something like that. Right now, to me, this looks like a real product. If they can get it all done with the nanometer size of 3 nanometers or less, then I think they can reach the numbers of 440 and then reduction in 75% of that. So based on that, it looks like the 440 terahash would be mining somewhere around, like, I'm guessing 3,000 watts possibly, which is huge, because right now the XP Pros are 110 terahash, but they are at like 3,060 watts. So huge improvement in that if they can do it. The other concerning part of that is the guys that obviously bought a lot of the XPs from Bitmain, and some of the other guys as well, even the XP 140s, the 140 terahash miners. A lot of places bought a lot of those miners. Once these start coming out, these do come out, and they actually prove to be what they are, they're saying it to be. This is going to be a game changer, obviously, for the guys that get these miners compared to the Bitmain. They're going to be mining a heck of a lot more with a lot less cost to it. So that could be a game changer. So we'll have to see if there's flipping between the miners as far as investor sentiment into those companies, right? Hash is king in this industry, and the one that has the highest average hash rate per miner ultimately wins. So it'll be interesting to see. Let me know what you guys thought of this. Obviously, this is kind of interesting. A lot of stuff going on, obviously. But we got to keep an eye on them. If they can do this, we'll have to obviously see also not IBM, just getting my things mixed up. Intel, to see what they're coming out with here in February. They're supposed to be at a chip conference show someplace, and I can't remember where it's at. So I'm not even going to try to guess where it's at. But they got that coming out. They're supposed to have a display model or a unit that's actually working. So we'll see what hash rate they are at, how many joules per terahash they're mining at, what the watts are basically, and everything else, to see how close they come to the new miners here, or if they're even better than the new miners. Or they might be the same. They could be the same 75% decrease in electricity usage, which would be great. So more innovation, more speed, less power is great for the industry in the long run. I think it's going to be, also we do have that FUD in the industry where, Bitcoin uses a lot of electricity. If we can cut that down 75%, that's going to be huge. Nobody's going to be able to complain about Bitcoin using a lot of electricity. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Let me know what you guys think. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, have a great day. Bye, you guys.